Rechlin Airfield, Germany, October 1944, and Hauptmann Hans-Werner Lerche, one of the Luftwaffe's most experienced test pilots, walks slowly around a North American P-51D Mustang that sits incongruously on German soil, its natural metal finish now interrupted by hastily applied Luftwaffe crosses and bright yellow identification bands painted around the nose, tail and fuselage. The aircraft carries the code T9+HK, a designation that belongs to no official Luftwaffe unit, marking it instead as property of the Circus Rosarius, the travelling circus of captured Allied aircraft that Lerche helps operate. This particular Mustang force landed 3 weeks ago after its pilot, a young American lieutenant from the 357th Fighter Group, misjudged his fuel state during a bomber escort mission and put down in a Belgian field that turned out to be behind rapidly shifting German lines. The pilot escaped, but his P-51D remained intact enough for German recovery teams to repair it to flying condition, and now Lerche has orders to evaluate this fighter that's been wreaking havoc on the Luftwaffe for the past year. What Lerche cannot know as he completes his pre-flight inspection, running his hands over the aircraft's remarkably smooth skin and peering into the massive air scoop beneath its belly, is that within 2 hours he will file a report that amounts to a death certificate for German fighter doctrine, an admission that the Americans have created something the Luftwaffe cannot match with any aircraft in their inventory. The capture and evaluation of enemy aircraft represents standard military practice for all combatants in World War II, driven by the understanding that knowing your opponent's capabilities can mean the difference between victory and annihilation. The Japanese A6M0 terrorized Allied pilots until the American forces recovered an intact example after the Battle of Midway, tested it thoroughly, and discovered weaknesses that could be exploited through specific tactics. The British operate No. 1426 enemy aircraft flight, flying captured German and Italian aircraft to familiarise RAF pilots with their characteristics and develop effective counter-tactics. The Soviets maintain similar programs, testing every Luftwaffe type they can capture to understand German capabilities and limitations. But the German program, centred at Rechlin and coordinated through units like Circus Rosarius, operates under increasingly desperate circumstances by late 1944, as the Luftwaffe faces overwhelming Allied air superiority and needs every advantage it can find. Hauptmann Theodor Rosarius formed the unit bearing his name in 1943, tasked with collecting captured Allied aircraft, restoring them to flying condition, and touring frontline Luftwaffe units to demonstrate enemy capabilities to German pilots who would face these aircraft in combat. The Circus Rosarius operates a collection that reads like a catalogue of Allied air power, including P-38 Lightnings with their distinctive twin booms, multiple P-47 Thunderbolts with their massive radial engines, several Spitfires representing various marks, captured Mosquitoes, and even a Typhoon. The aircraft are painted with standard Luftwaffe markings and distinctive yellow identification bands to prevent German anti-aircraft gunners from shooting them down, then flown to operational airfields where Rosarius and his pilots demonstrate their performance characteristics, explain their strengths and weaknesses, and provide German fighter pilots with crucial intelligence about what they'll face in combat. The program proves invaluable as German pilots learn to recognize different Allied types at distance, understand their performance envelopes, and exploit any weaknesses the test pilots can identify. Hans-Werner Lerche represents the Luftwaffe's best, a career test pilot with thousands of hours in dozens of different aircraft types, possessing the technical knowledge to understand aircraft design and the piloting skill to explore performance limits without killing himself. By October 1944, Lerche has flown everything from obsolete biplanes to jet-powered Me-262s, and his reports carry weight throughout the Luftwaffe High Command because he writes with brutal honesty about what he finds, unconcerned with politics or propaganda. When Lerche says an aircraft is good, commanders believe him. When he identifies weaknesses, they incorporate his findings into tactical doctrine. His evaluation of the captured P-51D will prove to be one of his most important reports, a document that confirms what many Luftwaffe pilots already suspect from bitter combat experience, that the Americans have created something exceptional. The P-51D sitting at Rechlin represents the culmination of a remarkable evolution that began with an aircraft designed to British specifications by a company with no fighter experience. North American Aviation created the original P-51 into 40, using an Allison engine that provided excellent low-altitude performance, but suffered at the higher altitudes where European air combat occurred. The British, desperate for fighters during the darkest days of the war, used these early Mustangs for low-level reconnaissance and ground attack, appreciating their speed and range, but recognizing their limitations. The transformation came when someone at Rolls-Royce suggested mating the P-51 airframe with the Merlin engine, the same power plant that made the Spitfire formidable. The combination proved extraordinary as the Merlin-powered Mustang achieved speeds exceeding 430 miles per hour at 30,000 feet, nearly 100 miles per hour faster than the Allison version, while maintaining the range and handling characteristics that made the original design promising. The P-51D model that Lurch prepares to fly represents further refinement of this winning combination, featuring a bubble canopy that provides exceptional visibility in all directions, 650 caliber machine guns with 1 to 80 rounds of ammunition, and the structural strength to handle violent combat maneuvers at high speeds. The aircraft weighs 725 pounds empty but can carry up to 11 to 600 pounds fully loaded with fuel and ammunition. Its Packard-built Merlin V1657 engine producing 1490 horsepower through a 4-bladed propeller. What makes the P-51D truly revolutionary, however, is not any single specification, but rather the integration of multiple advanced features into a package that exceeds the sum of its parts. The laminar flow wing design reduces drag, allowing greater speed and range. The large internal fuel capacity, supplemented by drop tanks, provides combat radius exceeding anything the Luftwaffe can match. The bubble canopy eliminates the blind spots that plague earlier fighters, giving American pilots a crucial advantage in spotting enemies before being spotted themselves. Lerche climbs into the cockpit, immediately noting differences from German fighters he knows intimately. The seat is comfortable, almost luxurious compared to the Spartan accommodations in Messerschmitt and Fokker-Wulf designs. The instrument panel is logically arranged, with primary flight instruments positioned where his eyes naturally fall, engine instruments grouped sensibly, and weapon controls accessible without fumbling. The control stick feels right in his hand, neither too light nor too heavy, positioned at a natural angle that doesn't require awkward wrist positions during long flights. The rudder pedals adjust easily to his leg length, a small detail that reveals thoughtful design. Everything about the cockpit speaks of an aircraft designed with pilot comfort in mind, suggesting Americans understand that a comfortable pilot is an effective pilot, able to concentrate on combat rather than fighting his aircraft. The Packard Merlin fires on the first attempt, settling into a smooth idle that reveals meticulous maintenance and quality construction. Lerche advances the throttle gradually, feeling the engine respond instantly without hesitation or roughness, noting how smoothly power builds as the RPM increases. The sound is familiar, the Merlin being a British design, but somehow it runs smoother than the versions he's heard in captured Spitfires, suggesting American manufacturing techniques produce tighter tolerances and better quality control. He completes his run-up checks, cycling the propeller through its pitch range, checking magnetos individually, verifying that all systems respond normally. Everything works perfectly, a stark contrast to late-war German aircraft where chronic shortages of quality materials mean something almost always malfunctions. Taxiing reveals the P-51's excellent ground handling, the aircraft responding precisely to rudder inputs, the tailwheel steering positive and predictable. Lerche has flown fighters that try to swap ends during taxi, requiring constant attention to keep them tracking straight. But the Mustang feels stable and manageable, inspiring confidence before he even leaves the ground. He aligns with Recklin's main runway, advances the throttle smoothly to full power, and releases the brakes. The acceleration is impressive but not violent, building steadily as the Merlin produces its full 1,490 horsepower, and the propeller converts that power into thrust. The tail comes up naturally at around 40 miles per hour, giving Lerche excellent forward visibility and making the takeoff roll feel controlled rather than desperate. At 90 miles per hour, he eases back on the stick and the Mustang lifts off smoothly, climbing away without requiring aggressive control inputs to maintain directional control. What happens next will fundamentally change how Lerche thinks about fighter aircraft design. As he retracts the landing gear and establishes a climb, he discovers that the P-51D handles unlike anything he's previously flown, combining responsiveness with stability in ways that seem almost contradictory. Light pressure on the stick produces immediate response, the aircraft rolling crisply and precisely. Yet when he releases pressure, the Mustang doesn't continue rolling or pitch wildly, but instead holds whatever attitude he's established. This is harmony, controls that respond instantly to pilot inputs, yet remain inherently stable, allowing precise maneuvering without requiring constant corrections. German fighters typically fall into two categories: stable but sluggish like the WW2, or responsive but twitchy like some Bf-109 variants. The Mustang somehow achieves both qualities simultaneously, responding like a thoroughbred racehorse yet remaining controllable like a reliable workhorse. Lercher climbs to 20,000 feet, planning to evaluate the P-51's performance across a range of altitudes and flight regimes. At altitude, he begins a systematic exploration, accelerating to high speed, then pulling up into a zoom climb, watching how much altitude the Mustang gains from excess speed. The answer is impressive, as the aircraft converts velocity to altitude efficiently, demonstrating energy retention that would prove crucial in combat. He tries high-speed dives, pushing the Mustang past 450 miles per hour, noting that the controls remain effective and responsive even at speeds where many fighters become dangerously stiff or develop violent vibrations. The P-51 stays smooth and controllable, its laminar flow-wing design delaying the onset of compressibility problems that plague other aircraft at high speed. Rolling the Mustang reveals handling characteristics that leave Lercher genuinely impressed, despite his determination to remain objective. The aircraft rolls quickly at all speeds, responding to aileron inputs with an eagerness that would prove deadly in combat, allowing American pilots to reverse direction rapidly when pursuing or evading. But the roll rate isn't uncontrollably violent, the stick forces remaining reasonable throughout the maneuver, meaning pilots can make large control inputs without exhausting themselves during the extended combat. Lercher has flown fighters where rapid rolls require brutal stick forces that leave pilots gasping and arms trembling after a few maneuvers. The Mustang rolls easily, almost effortlessly, yet remains predictable and controllable throughout. The turning performance proves equally impressive as Lercher banks hard and pulls, feeling G-forces build as the Mustang arcs through the sky. The aircraft turns tightly, bleeding speed gradually rather than dropping out of the sky suddenly, like some fighters do when asked to turn hard. More importantly, the controls remain effective throughout the turn, allowing lurch to adjust bank angle and pitch precisely rather than simply holding maximum deflection and hoping. The buffet that warns of approaching stall comes smoothly and predictably, giving plenty of warning before the wing actually stalls. When he deliberately forces the aircraft into a stall, recovery is immediate and straightforward, requiring only relaxing back pressure on the stick. No violent wing drop, no tendency to snap into a spin, just a straightforward stall and easy recovery. Lercher tries a series of combat maneuvers, rolling inverted and pulling through into a split S, then immediately reversing with aileron rolls and climbing turns. The Mustang handles everything he throws at it, responding precisely and predictably, never surprising him with unexpected behavior. He attempts high G turns at various speeds and altitudes, exploring the aircraft's limits, discovering that the P-51 remains controllable and predictable throughout its performance envelope. There are no hidden vices, no dangerous quirks that could kill unwary pilots, just clean, honest handling that would allow American pilots to concentrate on fighting rather than managing their aircraft. Evaluating combat maneuverability, Lercher imagines dogfighting scenarios, visualizing how the Mustang would perform against German fighters. In turning fights at lower speeds, German fighters like the Bf-109 might have slight advantages, being able to turn tighter in some conditions, but the P-51's superior speed and energy retention mean American pilots can choose whether to engage in turning fights or use hit-and-run tactics that exploit the Mustang's speed advantage. Against the FW-90, the comparison is more complex, as that aircraft excels at high-speed performance but lacks the Mustang's range and high-altitude capability. Against either German type, the P-51's exceptional visibility from the bubble canopy provides a crucial advantage, allowing American pilots to see threats early and position themselves advantageously. The dive performance particularly impresses Lerche as he pushes the Mustang into increasingly steep dives, watching the airspeed indicator climb past 450 miles per hour. Many fighters become uncontrollable in high-speed dives, their elevators losing effectiveness or developing such high stick forces that pilots cannot pull out. The Mustang remains controllable throughout, its elevators staying effective even at very high speeds, allowing Lerche to pull out of dives smoothly, without excessive G-forces or dangerous vibrations. This characteristic would prove crucial in combat, allowing American pilots to dive away from danger then recover safely, knowing their aircraft will respond to control inputs. Returning to lower altitudes, Lerche evaluates low-level performance, flying at 500 feet while making aggressive maneuvers. The Mustang handles beautifully at low altitude, maintaining its responsive yet stable characteristics, giving him confidence that American pilots can operate effectively at all altitudes from sea level to 30,000 feet without encountering performance drop-offs or handling changes. The visibility from the bubble canopy proves its worth at low altitude, allowing him to see clearly in all directions, spotting ground features and potential threats easily. The stall characteristics deserve special attention as Lerche explores how the aircraft behaves near its minimum flying speed. Approaching stall in various configurations, he finds the P-51 provides excellent warning through buffeting. The stall itself is gentle and predictable, and recovery requires only minimal pilot input. There's no tendency toward violent wing drops or snap rolls that plague some fighters, making the Mustang forgiving of pilot errors while still maintaining good maneuverability. Landing configuration stalls are equally benign, the aircraft settling gently when the wing finally stalls, recovering immediately when he reduces angle of attack. Testing the gun platform characteristics, Lerche flies smooth approaches toward imaginary targets, noting how steady the Mustang remains when flown precisely, how easily he can make small corrections to track targets, how the aircraft's stability allows him to concentrate on aiming rather than flying. The 6 50 caliber machine guns are arranged in the wings, 3 per side, positioned to provide concentrated firepower at typical combat ranges. The ammunition supply of under 80 rounds gives approximately 35 seconds of continuous fire, though combat pilots typically fire in short bursts to conserve ammunition and avoid overheating. After 90 minutes of intensive evaluation, Lerche brings the Mustang back to Rechlin, entering the traffic pattern and configuring for landing. The flaps extend smoothly, creating significant drag and allowing steep approaches without building excess speed. The landing gear comes down with solid mechanical clunks, the gear doors closing after extension in a detail that reveals thoughtful design, reducing unnecessary drag. On final approach, the Mustang feels stable and predictable, holding speed precisely, responding to throttle adjustments without lag. Lerche crosses the runway threshold at 90 miles per hour, reduces power smoothly, and flares gently. The P-51 settles onto the runway in a 3-point attitude, the landing gear absorbing the impact without bouncing, directional control remaining positive throughout the rollout. Shutting down the Merlin after taxiing clear, Lerche sits quietly in the cockpit for several minutes, organising his thoughts before writing his evaluation report. What he's just experienced represents a sobering reality for the Luftwaffe. The Americans have created a fighter that matches or exceeds German aircraft in every important category, while offering range capabilities German designers haven't approached. The P-51D isn't dramatically superior in any single aspect. It doesn't turn tighter than everything else. It's not faster than every German fighter at all altitudes. It doesn't climb better than every opponent. But it's very good at everything, combining excellent performance with superb handling, long range, good firepower, exceptional visibility, and robust construction into a package that represents the state-of-the-art in fighter design. Lerche's formal evaluation report, written that evening, and submitted through channels to Luftwaffe High Command reads like an admission of defeat disguised as technical analysis. He describes the P-51D's handling as exceptional, noting specifically the aircraft's combination of responsive controls and inherent stability that makes it both maneuverable and easy to fly. He comments on the excellent visibility from the bubble canopy, describing it as a significant tactical advantage that allows American pilots to spot threats early. The Merlin engine receives praise for its smooth operation and reliable power delivery across a wide altitude range. The range capabilities are noted with barely concealed dismay, Lerche calculating that American fighters based in England can escort bombers to any target in Germany and still have fuel to fight. The overall assessment concludes that the P-51D represents one of the finest fighter aircraft in service with any air force, combining technical excellence with practical usability in ways German designers haven't achieved. Other Luftwaffe test pilots who fly captured Mustangs echo Lerche's assessment, describing handling characteristics that exceed German fighters while offering range that makes strategic escort missions possible. Reports use words like disconcerting not because the P-51 has obvious flaws to exploit, but because it doesn't. German pilots are accustomed to enemy fighters having clear weaknesses, the Spitfire's limited range, the P-47's mediocre climb rate at lower altitudes, the P-38's relatively sluggish roll rate. The Mustang has no such obvious vulnerability, forcing German pilots to rely on superior tactics and experience rather than exploiting aircraft limitations. The strategic implications of these evaluation reports are profound and deeply troubling for Luftwaffe commanders who read them. The P-51D's exceptional range means American fighters can escort bomber formations throughout their missions, eliminating the short windows where German fighters could attack unescorted bombers. The aircraft's speed and high-altitude performance mean German fighters cannot simply climb above escort altitude and dive through to attack bombers. The handling characteristics mean American pilots can dogfight effectively when necessary, while maintaining enough performance advantage to disengage when desired. Most troubling, the production numbers suggest Americans are building Mustangs in quantities German industry cannot match, meaning even if individual Luftwaffe pilots are more experienced, they'll face overwhelming numerical odds. Circus Rosarius continues touring operational units with the captured P-51D, allowing frontline pilots to see the aircraft up close, examine its construction, and watch demonstrations of its capabilities. Veteran Jagdflieger who fought Mustangs in combat described their experiences, explaining how American pilots use the aircraft's speed and energy retention to control engagements, how they employ the excellent visibility to avoid ambushes, how they exploit superior numbers made possible by the aircraft's reliability and ease of production. The demonstrations serve multiple purposes, educating German pilots about enemy capabilities, explaining tactical approaches that might work against Mustangs, but also preparing the Luftwaffe psychologically for continued losses against an enemy flying superior equipment in overwhelming numbers. The captured P-51 becomes almost a travelling exhibit of American industrial and engineering capabilities, proof that the United States has mastered both the science of aerodynamics and the art of manufacturing. German pilots examining the Mustang note construction details that reveal advanced production techniques, the smooth riveting that reduces drag, the quality materials throughout, the standardized components that suggest sophisticated manufacturing processes. Everything about the aircraft speaks of abundant resources properly employed, a stark contrast to late-war German aircraft where chronic material shortages force substitution of inferior components and crude construction methods. Some Luftwaffe pilots, after seeing the captured Mustang and hearing evaluation reports, begin questioning whether Germany can win a war where the enemy possesses such overwhelming technical and numerical superiority. The P-51D represents not just an excellent fighter aircraft, but a symbol of American industrial might, proof that the United States can design, produce, and field cutting-edge equipment in quantities that dwarf German capabilities. For pilots who've watched the Luftwaffe shrink from a force dominating European skies to desperately defending German cities against daily raids, The Mustang embodies everything going wrong with Germany's war effort. The irony of the situation doesn't escape thoughtful observers. Germany began the war with arguably the world's most advanced air force, employing aircraft and tactics that overwhelmed opponents. But while the Luftwaffe rested on early successes and struggled with resource constraints, American designers and engineers created aircraft like the P-51 that leapfrogged German technology. The Mustang's development from an average low-altitude fighter to an exceptional all-around performer demonstrates American ability to identify problems and implement solutions quickly, adapting existing designs rather than starting from scratch. This flexibility contrasts sharply with German approaches that often emphasize clean-sheet designs requiring extended development time. By late 1944, when Loesche files his evaluation of the captured P-51D, the Luftwaffe faces a crisis where pilot quality and tactical doctrine cannot overcome American advantages in numbers and equipment quality. German pilots continue fighting with skill and courage, scoring victories when circumstances allow, but the overall trajectory of the air war is unmistakable. American fighters like the Mustang, flown by increasingly experienced pilots and supported by overwhelming numbers, dominate German skies, escorting bomber raids that systematically destroy German industrial capacity while protecting those bombers from Luftwaffe interception. The captured P-51D at Rechlin eventually meets an ignominious end when Allied bombing raids damage the airfield and the aircraft is destroyed on the ground, denied the warrior's death in combat that might have given it dignity. By then it has served its purpose, providing German pilots and commanders with detailed knowledge about American capabilities while simultaneously demonstrating how far Germany has fallen behind in the aerial technology race. The evaluations filed by Loesche and others circulate through Luftwaffe channels, read by commanders who must somehow counter an enemy flying superior equipment in overwhelming numbers. In post-war interviews and writings, Loesche describes the P-51 as one of the most impressive aircraft he flew during extensive test pilot career spanning dozens of types from multiple nations. His assessment that the Mustang combined exceptional handling with practical usability influences post-war aircraft design, as engineers study what made the P-51 successful and incorporate those lessons into future fighters. The combination of responsive controls and inherent stability that Loesche praised becomes a design goal for subsequent generations of fighters, the understanding that pilots need aircraft that are both agile and forgiving. The story of German test pilots flying captured Mustangs reveals much about World War II's aerial warfare and the factors determining victory. Technical excellence matters. The P-51D was genuinely superior to contemporary German fighters in most important respects. But numbers matter too. American industry produced over 15,000 Mustangs, overwhelming German ability to counter them regardless of individual pilot skill. Industrial capacity matters. The quality construction and abundant resources evident in the Mustang represented American economic strength German could not match. Design philosophy matters. American willingness to adapt existing designs rather than pursuing perfection allowed faster deployment of effective equipment. When Loesche wrote that he had never seen handling like the Mustangs, he was acknowledging that American designers had achieved something special, creating a fighter that would influence aircraft design for generations, while helping win the air war over Europe through a combination of technical excellence and overwhelming numbers. The captured P-51 that Loesche flew for the 90 minutes in October 1944 represented more than just an excellent fighter aircraft. It symbolized American ability to identify critical military needs, apply engineering and industrial resources to meeting those needs, and produce equipment that exceeded enemy capabilities while being simple enough to manufacture in massive quantities. The Mustang succeeded not because it was perfect, but because it was very good at everything important while being practical to build and easy to fly. These characteristics, more than raw performance numbers, made it one of World War II's most effective fighters and earned it respect from friend and foe alike, including a German test pilot who recognized excellence despite the uniform it wore.